Hi, this is Joel Johnson. Excited to have you here today because what we are talking about is the difference between a portfolio and a retirement plan. At Johnson Brunetti, we've worked with thousands of families, and most of the time when we start working with a family, we start working with them about 5 to 10 years before retirement, and then take them through retirement and into their later years, and then many times we end up working with the next generation. So we've got a lot of experience in this. And one of the things I've noticed is when people come to us, that first time they come to us, perhaps in their early 50s or late 50s, and say, hey, I'm getting ready to retire, I want to make sure I'm in good shape, some of them come very well prepared and set up, and some of them don't come set up very well at all. And a lot of times it's because they don't get this difference, this importance of having a full financial plan or a full retirement plan, not just an investment portfolio. So let's dig deep here today and let's talk about the differences between a portfolio and a retirement plan. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what is a portfolio? What's a portfolio of investments? Well, it's just simply a mix of investments, a specific mix of investments to grow or to preserve your wealth. In your younger years, that portfolio is typically going to be full of a lot of growth stocks, maybe individual stocks or mutual funds, because you don't want that money for a while. That money's slated for retirement, and it's going to grow, 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 grow. And then in retirement, that portfolio is designed to spin off income. But again, the difference is when you look at your life as just a portfolio or your investments as just a portfolio, you're just sort of paying attention to that mix of investments, and you're looking at growth or preservation or income or some type of a goal. You're not looking at the whole picture. When you look at a retirement plan, you're looking at a broader strategy that's focused on your long-term retirement goals, your long-term financial goals. What does that mean? It means it's going to encompass a lot more than just what is that mix of investments. I mean, step back for a minute and think about retirement. And if you go way back, my grandfather came over here when he was 16 years old on a boat from Norway. He was born in the early 1900s, and he didn't know anything about investments. And the way he looked at his retirement is, well, I'm going to get this thing called Social Security one day, and if I work at this company, and he worked at a food company up in Minneapolis, I'm going to get a pension one day. And so when he thought of retirement, he thought of, what is my retirement lifestyle going to look like? He wasn't focused on investments because back then you had pension and Social Security, and for a lot of people, that was enough. So the concept here I'm trying to get across is, retirement planning is more than just the investments. And all my grandfather knew was, well, I'm getting that pension, I'm getting that Social Security, and I better build up some other assets, and I don't want to just leave money at the bank, so I'm going to buy a little bit of real estate. And that's kind of how he approached it. Well, today, we're a little more sophisticated. We have access to broader things. But again, many people still just focus on those investments. They don't focus on the retirement plan. So, so important. The retirement plan, that financial plan, it's a broader strategy that encompasses your entire financial life. What do I want to do in retirement? Do I want to travel? Do I want to spend time with grandkids? Do I want to help with grandkids' education? Do I feel like I've given enough to my kids and grandkids and I just want to spend all my money before I pass away and bounce the check to the funeral home? That's up to you if you want to do that. But what does that whole retirement look like? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the measurement of success. How do we measure the success of a portfolio? Well, it's just simply rate of return, right? Usually to measure, and the institutional way or the sophisticated way to measure a portfolio of investments is, how is my return on my investment mix compared to some type of a benchmark? Your benchmark might be the US stock market. It might be a mix of stocks and bonds, but you're sort of in this scoring system, right? Did I do better or worse than this benchmark? Again, you're looking at this from a measure of success standpoint. You're looking at it as, how did my portfolio perform against a benchmark? And the mistake people make, again, is looking at that in a vacuum. They're just looking at that portfolio. Where the success of a retirement plan, that's a whole different ballgame. The success of a retirement plan is, did I set myself up properly so that I get the income I want in retirement, so that if I want to leave money behind to someone or to causes that I care deeply about, I can do that, so that I can get raises each year to keep up with the cost of living that we all know is going to continue to go up. Do I want to gift to charity? It encompasses, again, all those things. So we measure the success of a portfolio based on some kind of a scoring system, usually against some type of benchmark. The S&P 500 is what a lot of people look at. Did I do better or worse? But that is irrelevant. It's not totally irrelevant, but it's somewhat irrelevant when you're looking at an entire retirement plan and saying, is that portfolio serving this broader plan. Big difference, right? Okay, let's talk about some risk considerations. So in a portfolio, if I'm managing an investment portfolio for someone, I'm managing market risk, okay? I want to go up when the market goes up, but I want to protect against the downside. Again, it's just looking at an outside benchmark or the stock market. The retirement plan, the risk consideration is, well, I've got to make sure I have income. I've got inflation risk, right? If I live 30 years in retirement, I might need to double or triple my income just to keep up with the cost of living. So there's inflation risk. There's health risk. What if I need long-term health care? My spouse needs long-term health care or health insurance changes. Longevity risk. What if I live too long? You know, what if I live 95, 100, 105 years? I mean, with what's going on with healthcare these days, and if you're listening to my voice, you're probably on the upper end of the socioeconomic landscape, and so you're probably getting access to better care than average. So if the average male lives to be, let's say, 83, you know, you're watching this, you're probably in that better than average category. You're probably living into your 90s. Female, you might be living into your late 90s, maybe even reaching 100. It will not be that uncommon 10 years from now to have a lot of people that are over 100 years old. So what's the longevity risk? Do I want to outlive my money? Certainly not. So the risk considerations in, again, a portfolio is just, I'm just managing for when the market goes down, I don't want to lose, or I don't want to lose as much as the market. In a retirement plan, it's a whole different thing. I've got to consider all of these different items, okay? So just to review real quick before we move on, and I want to really talk about how these all connect together. But again, the purpose of a portfolio is to build an investment plan to just sort of get rate of return. Rate of return with a little, as well, basically not too much risk so I don't freak out and get out of the market. Where the purpose of a retirement plan is to make sure I'm taken care of for the rest of my life, or in my case, I'm married, so my spouse and I are taken care of for the rest of our lives. And in our retirement plan, we want to leave money behind to a family foundation. We also want to leave money behind to take care of kids and grandkids to make their lives a little bit easier, but not to completely spoil them. And so all of that is considered in our retirement plan. If I look at a portfolio, I'm not looking at any of that, just looking at the investments. If I look at a retirement plan, I'm looking at the whole thing, okay? Again, continuing on our review here, we've got the measurement of success. Again, from a portfolio, all we're talking about is, did I do better or worse than a benchmark? I'm just kind of keeping a score. It's important, but again, I'm not looking at the context of a whole financial plan. Where retirement, am I making progress? So I mentioned earlier, you know, if somebody comes to us and gets financial advice from us, becomes a client in their 50s, let's say late 50s, there's a clear measurement. Are we getting closer to meeting all your income goals in retirement? And if you have extra left over, are we talking about those extra things? So very different, right? And then, of course, risk consideration. When I'm doing investment management alone, I'm just managing risk, okay? I'm trying to pick the best investments to give me the greatest rate of return with the least amount of risk. That's the benchmark. Whether you're an institutional pension fund manager or whether you're managing your own personal money for your own personal household, that's how you should look at it. Where with a retirement plan, what are we doing? We're trying to stay away from inflation, letting inflation eat into our life savings. We're trying to make sure that we have enough income to do all the things that we want to do. We want to manage against healthcare costs, make sure we have what it takes to pay for healthcare costs. So all of these different things are factoring in. So how are they connected? How are we connecting these things together? Where do they intermesh? Because again, I started earlier saying if you have a house built, you want to make sure you've got a great blueprint, that's the plan, right? And you have carpenters and people coming in and building, and you don't necessarily care what hammer they're using, but they need to use the right tools to build that house. The tools are the investments, okay? So sort of bringing this all full circle, okay? How are they connected? Your retirement plan should drive the investment decisions, not the opposite. Here's where people get in trouble. They say, I'm going to invest my money a certain way, and then when I get to retirement, I'll decide based on what that grows to, what my retirement will look like. That's the wrong way to do it. That's like a pilot saying, I'm going to take off in the plane and head in this direction, and then when I find a city, I'll decide where to land. You don't do that, okay? You have a plan ahead of time, all right? So we want to take those investments and say, the investments, we're going to think about those in just a second. We're going to design this retirement life, this retirement financial plan, and then let's plug the investments to make sure they fit the plan. Big difference, right? Which comes first, the plan or the investments? The plan should always come first, okay? Your portfolio should change as your broader financial goals change. So, I'm 63 years old now, okay? I'm gonna be 64 this year. And when I look back, if we look back 20 years, we had no idea that our company, Johnson Brunetti, would grow as big. Wendy and I just wanted to kind of make it to retirement, make sure our kids were educated and so on. Well, our plans have changed because we did a lot better than we thought we would. Most of you watching this are actually doing better than you think you are. At least that's the folks that come in and see us. They're actually doing a little bit better than they think they are, and they're doing better than they thought they would in their 20s and 30s. So you want to adjust your retirement plan. Now all of a sudden, maybe you have more than you need and you start thinking about, do I leave money behind? And so on and so forth, okay? Or the economics change, or something happens in your family and you want to adjust that financial plan. And if you adjust that financial plan, then again, the portfolio should change. So again, the portfolio always serves the broader plan. And then the last piece here about how these things are all connected is a strong portfolio without a plan will still fail to meet your objectives. They're not going to meet your retirement needs if you don't have that strong retirement plan. So it's so important. So I think you get the point here, right? I wanted to paint the picture here, but it's just so important that as we look back, we look at our whole matrix that I was showing a minute ago, we look at how things are connected. The retirement plan has to come first, and then the investment comes afterwards. Are we experts in investments? Are other financial planners, we're not the only firm out there, are other financial planners really good at the investment piece? Yes, but they've got to be good at taking that investment piece and using it as a tool to reach that overall financial plan. So I trust this has been helpful for you. It's so important, and this is a lot of education that we have to do with people that come in and see us for the first time is let's forget about what you have invested for just a few minutes. Let's spend the first half hour, 45 minutes getting to know each other, and let's really design the right retirement plan. Then we'll get to the investments. So many financial advisors, they go right to the investments and say, oh, we can do this better than this other person is doing it, and let's switch those. That doesn't make any sense. In fact, that ought to be a red flag if you're talking to a financial advisor and they start doing that. Build the plan first. Build the plan first. So again, this is Joel Johnson with Johnson Brunetti. We're so excited that you're here on our YouTube channel. Check out some of the other videos and the other segments, and we look forward to visiting with you at another time.